All right, one of the areas I get, Larry, I get like 20 questions on EAP, and people get blindsided. So let's make sure people understand how we authenticate who people are. We're not just using passwords today, right? So let's take a look at the question. An enterprise is reviewing ways to authenticate remote users and wants to reduce their exposure to rogue infrastructure, especially man-in-the-middle attacks. To help ease deployment processes, they're hoping to have clients rolled out without certificates at first, but later enable their use once the server and other issues are worked out. Which protocol should they choose? So again, the requirements of this question is that whatever we choose has to be able to reduce their exposure to the most common type of rogue infrastructure as a man in the middle, a skimmer, whatever. So I need to do mutual authentication. That means when you answer the phone or whatever, don't just say, this is me. You always go, and who am I talking to? Like in IPsec, you authenticate both, at least the IP address. But here I got to authenticate the person and the server that they're done. All right. So, and the other thing is that we want to use certificates. All right, certificates are not just a standard password. So it can't be PAP or CHAP. These are password only. This is a clear text password. You shouldn't even use it. This is encrypted passwords. But if you're going to do any type of MFA, you got to have something extensible. So we added years and years ago the extensible authentication protocol, and there's many different implementations of it. I highly recommend that you go through Wikipedia's look at these things. EAP-MD5, by the way, it's common knowledge. EAP-MD5 only provides authentication of the client to the server, so that's not going to fix it. So what's this other one here? EAP-TTLS. EAP-TLS, I remember that one. EAP-TLS it uses certificates, including client signs, requires. So that's probably the strongest way you could do it. But if you've ever tried to roll out certificates, it's not easy. I don't know too many people who have ever made this work. Ask the people who make 5G. It was supposed to support it. 5G phones were supposed to get away from EAP AKA, and that's for another talk, but they support, I don't know anybody who actually made that work. So I would have thought it would have been better if they did TTLS. TTLS, the client can, but does not have to have a certificate. So that answers our question here. So obviously the answer is 4, but let's make sure we understand. When you first plug in our first networks in the 80s, you plugged in an Ethernet connection. You got your frame on the network. Your layer 1 physical connector got you a layer 2 frame. That's not how it worked in dial-up. So when your first WANs was you used the phone line that was for voice, a serial asynchronous serial line, RS-232 EIA. They changed the name, but whatever. I like RS. It's 2 keystrokes, but it meant recommended standard. It is a standard, and it's common knowledge. It means you might want to remember for the CISSP exam. This is your basic dial-up modem, what fax machines still use and everything. But how did I get IP over that? At layer 2, we had SLIP. The serial line internet protocol said, nah, I need to know a name. It's not like Ethernet. So once you dial the number, you're prompted for a clear text password. That's not a good idea. So they replaced SLIP, and there's a number of questions too on PPP, by the way. It replaced it for a couple things. It doesn't just do dial-up; it does any type of synchronous network, right, or asynchronous. So that's nice. It supports not PAP. We don't want to do it, but it extended it, and that allowed for many extensions, including using a centralized management server and remote authentication dial-in user service. Radius doesn't care if you're dialed in. Radius cares that you support EAP. They later extended that with EAP over LANs, also known as 802.1x. I would like to see this name changed to just authentication user service, but that's just Larry. Anyway, so again, it's really not for dial-in. It's a centralized management system, and the name just got screwed up. They didn't know they were going to extend it over LANs. Yeah, PAP, again, is a clear text legacy protocol. We shouldn't even see this. That's going to fail any audit. CHAP is okay if in your environment passwords are enough for this particular usage case, whatever, that's fine, but it is an encrypted password. EAP MD5 was an early implementation of EAP that for some reason the ISS square considers common knowledge today, but it does not authenticate the server. Now, only EAP TTLS of these choices. And again, EAP TLS would also solve it. but it wouldn't make the rollout very easy because you'd have to have the client certificates are required. All righty. I hope that makes some things a little clearer and makes you want to come sit in one of my classes. All right, everybody, have a good one.